Can you tell me? What am I? Am I a human? Am I a beast?
A beast?
Or neither? Am I a monster now? What am I then? Tell me!
Kyuta was a young kid dealing with the divorce of his parents. He wanted an escape and decided to run away. His curiosity gets the best of him and he follows two beastly figures that question him about his life on the street. After getting caught up with the police, Kyuta breaks loose and decides to chase down the two strange figures through a maze of secret passages and alleyways. He should have been careful of what he wished for because he surely did get his escape. He gets literally spirited away to the beast world of Jutengai. Lost, scared, stubborn, and surprisingly comfortable describes the boy's state. He went from a runaway to born with a sloppy bear, and he never quests reality. Not even once. The bear Kumatetsu lays the ground rules and pretty much tells the boy to be anything but a nagging bitch. They later wake up to the iconic white rice and egg breakfast that looks so good, but is really an acquired taste to say the least. Kyuta agrees with me and they get into a shouting match about how distasteful the breakfast is. And then they begin to do what I thought was the most entertaining thing to do as a kid. Chase someone around an object instead of jumping over it. Kumatetsu chases Kyuta around the city, and this is the perfect setup for some world building, where we see a marketplace, laborers, textile workers, and blacksmith wildebeest beating the goofy out some metal. Kyuta's intrigued, then he remembers he's running from a 12-foot bear. He runs into the lion Iozen's apprentices, Juramaru and Ichirohiko, Kyuta's foil. More on that later. Iozen confronts Kumatetsu about his apprenticeship status. Iozen fires shots at Kumatetsu stating that he is too childish to be a good guardian, and Kumatetsu proceeds to drop the bombshell that his apprentice is actually a human. They find the human boy, and Iozen warns Kumatetsu of the dangers that lie within the human heart. They get into a heated argument that wouldn't have amounted to much privately, but since it's public and pride is a motherfucker, they fight. Kumatetsu was rough around the edges, but he was raw, authentic, and genuine. He was the drunk uncle who would tell you exactly how it is. Iozen was clearly the crowd favorite, poised, responsible, and principled, both gunning to become the next lord of Jutengai after the rabbit makes his decision on which god he will be. Kumatetsu neglects fight etiquette and proceeds to showboat, starkly contrasting Iozen's stoic and calm demeanor. Kumatetsu throws the first punch, and Iozen returns the favor with a polarized indifference of actually landing. These steroids kick in and they get into a headbutting match. Iozen starts to lose, but home court advantage is an advantage. Iozen begins to beat the goofy out of Kumatetsu, delivering L after L with each connection. The Grandmaster puts an end to the madness and allows Kumatetsu to teach the boy. Kumatetsu and Kyuta live in harmony, well, kind of, with a strict regimen of cardio, antics, more antics, clean eating, traveling, and training. Their bond grew stronger. After years of this, Kyuta is now and has grown considerably, now not only being able to keep up with Kumatetsu, but has sharpened Kuma's skills as well.
Which is the master and which the apprentice?
With Kyuta's exceptional growth, people were now waiting in line for the shot to be under Kumatetsu's tutelage. Could we not talk about how cold Kyuta has gotten? This nigga dodged some chopsticks with his eyes closed while eating comfort food. Bro, that's crazy. Kyuta makes a decision that Kumatetsu doesn't agree with, and he, like so many other times in the story, decides to run away. Juramaru, surprised by Kyuta's presence, acknowledges his and Kumatetsu's growth, stating that Kumatetsu may be a great match for Iozen. Ichirohiko rebuttals.
Kumatetsu? Don't compare that lazy slob to father.
And Juramaru has a stark realization that his childhood friend might be a threat to society. Kyuta and Ichirohiko are both foils, both human and both apprentices. That's a hard one. To the two possible successors for lordship. Like I said before, Kumatetsu was raw, but it was genuine. But Iozen, I always feel like it was too prideful, and of course pride can lead to the downfall of anything. And it makes sense that Iozen is prideful because he is a lion, and lions are almost the symbol of pride. And with Iozen being too prideful, he never took that look in the mirror to see if he was doing anything wrong. I found it ironic that he says that Kumatetsu could not handle a human. However, ostracization can create two outcomes. A person who is kind-hearted and nurturing and understands the pain of being an outcast, and the person who loses his humanity and becomes mad at the world. An environment like this either creates a selfless hero or a cold-hearted villain. However, in this cold world, even Kyuta starts to lose his humanity. and Kaido was the one who helped him find it again. We are introduced to Kaido when Kyuta is reading a book like a cyclops with one eye closed. He asks her how to pronounce the word that he's struggling with, and she gladly helps. Then she confronts the loud high school students and kicks them out of the library. This is a great introduction for Kaido because it shows that she is caring, but also principled and combative. However, this is quickly contrasted with the scene of her being bullied. In the span of less than 2 minutes, a complex character was fleshed out right before our eyes. Because at this specific point in the plot, as a viewer, we can only assume that Kaido is lonely based on what the bully says. But if you look back 20 seconds before, you can actually verify this. After she confronted the teens, Kaido goes back to that bookshelf just to be met with Kyuta's absence. Again, in the span of less than 2 minutes, a character with an integral role in the plot is fleshed out extremely well despite the rather obvious time constraints. Kyuta pulls up and goes to work, dealing with all 3 guys at once, striking fear into the hearts of the fleeing roaches. All primarily within the same shot, no cuts, but a smooth pan that captures this beautiful scene in its entirety. Afterwards, Kaido thanks Kyuta and they formally introduce themselves. Kaido spells out her name to Kyuta, and Kyuta decides to go by Ren, which is his real human world name. This is significant, because this marks the point where he starts to form an attachment to the human world, which later strains his relationship with Kumatetsu. This marks the point where he starts to feel the need to be normal and becomes torn between the human world and the beast world. The now Ren and Kaido begin to bond over literature, Kaido offering knowledge and Ren offering companionship. His obligations in the beast world start to conflict with his newfound love and curiosity for the human one. Red and Kaido start to confide in each other. Kaido, for the first time, admits that she wants to live her life for her and not for her parents. Kaido then suggests that Ren goes to college. He was hesitant at first but later agreed. Inside of Ren, this agreement later turned to a right during his clashes with Kumatetsu. And of course you cannot deny the facts when they are laid out in front of you across the table. He had the right to make his own decisions, the right to go to the human world, and ultimately, he had the right to be normal. The right to put this freak show of a life behind him and finally grow accustomed to normalcy. Ren later reunites with his father that further breaks his bond with the beast world. This is further exemplified by the changes of Ren's body language throughout his time in the human world. The differences are night and day when we compare his body language to when he first got there to the last scenes when he starts to live there. It was initially out of place because of his attire, but Kaido cashed him out and got him a new outfit. He can clearly see that what made him stand out was his awkward posture. He often slouched, which juxtaposed Kaido's perfect posture, and he often looked uncomfortable, and his feelings of being out of place seemed to manifest in his posture. When comparing his dominant and authoritative body language in the beast world to this, it's clear. He has the aura of the quiet kid who felt like he didn't belong, the kid who didn't feel normal. And now he is to face his master to deliver the heartbreaking news that he wants to be normal. Of course, Kumatetsu doesn't approve and they get into the usual shouting match, but this time, Ren doesn't argue. He does much more. He decides to deliver the foulest line in Jutengai history. I know where my dad is now. This is the moment that the years Kumatetsu put into developing Ren were thrown in his face. This is then followed by one of the sadder scenes in the film. Ren slams his old man. And despite Kumatetsu being disrespected to that degree, he is still calling out the boy's name. The new recruits suffer because in Kumatetsu's eyes, no one stacks up to the greatness that is Ren. The recruits are spineless, agreeable, and passionless. The events that follow this is what elevates this film from just that one good animal movie I saw a commercial for a couple years ago to this is one of the best anime films ever. Ren rejects his human father's companionship because he is nothing like the one that he sees as his real father. This causes a rift inside the boy because though he wants to be normal, he knows that his life thus far has been nothing but obscurity. This scene is quickly followed with Ren seeing his younger self but with a void for a heart because he was ignorant to the fact that in the quest of chasing normalcy, you also risk losing your identity. Kyuta thought that he would find home in becoming Ren, but found himself in limbo trying to find his true identity, which makes this appearance of his younger self even more symbolic because he lacked his heart. And the saying goes, home is where the heart is, but if you lack a heart, there is no home to identify with. Now with the realization that he is too beast to be human and too human to be beast, he feels like an imposter, a fraud, a reject, a phony. This is the darkness that Iozan was hinting at before, manifesting right before our eyes. But this is the darkness that consumed Ichirohiko. This lack of identity will consume you. And it was truly starting to consume Kyuta. But unlike Ichirohiko, Kyuta actually has someone to be by his side that he can confide in and express these very tender emotions with. He had someone who was first nurturing, but willing to slap him back to reality. This slap in an odd way was comforting to Kyuta because it told him at the very least, someone was there to console him, to love him. Ichirohiko, on the other hand, was all alone. This is also shown in the genius cinematography, where Jiromaru, who is pretty much Ichirohiko's brother, is seen shaking hands and laughing with Kyuta, but Ichirohiko is shown coming from a dark room, all alone. Then this is followed by what comes hand in hand with the lack of true identity: self-hate. Ichirohiko later attacks Kyuta, spouting his disgust in humans and himself. And this is when Kyuta sees it. Ichirohiko is battling with an identity crisis, and he also has a void within himself. It is evident that the only way to fill the void is to come to terms with your three choices: either be human, beast, or monster. And Ichirohiko chose monster. But I think Kyuta truly saw the fourth option. That was to be true to himself. He chose to accept his obscurities and idiosyncrasies. He came to terms with the fact that no one would ever truly understand what it is like to be him. Kyuta chooses to be Kyuta, not human, not beast, not monster, just the result of his lived experience. And all of this is displayed during the longest 1 second I've seen in my life, when Kumatetsu was on the 9th count of his down against his fight for lordship against Iozen. My nigga, that was a 1 second on crack and steroids. That shit was 40 seconds long. That shit is uncalled for. If I was Iozen, I would have been so angry, because this is a WWE guest referee match and the referee does not like me.
Wait. 1, 2. There's 2 now. It doesn't matter if the Rock counts to 3. Oh, man.
Kyuta lights a fire under Kumatetsu. Iozen throws the first punch, and Kumatetsu returns the favor with a polarizing difference of actually landing. Iozen is down for the count, and Kumatetsu is crowned the new lord of Ju Tengai. This celebration is cut short when Ichirohiko decides to be the monster he sees himself as. Because he found comfort in this new self-proclaimed identity, thinking it would fill this painful void within him, but in actuality, it only made it more cavernous. The irony here is he decides to choose the worst option out of the four, being himself, a human, a beast, or a monster. Ichirohiko being himself would have completely filled the void inside of him. Identifying as solely being a human or a beast would have only shrunk the void, because that would mean abandoning a huge part of his lived experience. But being a monster means abandoning his entire lived experience, abandoning both his nature and his upbringing. Ichirohiko uses telekinesis to launch a sword into Kumatetsu, impaling him in his back while laughing hysterically. In the monster's eyes, he saw this as just and right. Now fully embodying the identity of a monster, Ichirohiko's void grows and consumes him, and Iozen looks to the past to see how he has failed as a guardian. We are met with a twist that he never tells Ichirohiko his true identity, which makes the case of Ichirohiko significantly more tragic than Kyuta. At least Kyuta was aware that he was written at one point a human, so he already swallowed the pill that he was inherently different from the beast. But Ichirohiko was robbed of this. He never had to deal with a tough pill to swallow because Iozen never attempted to administer to him in the first place. Ichirohiko lived his whole life waiting to be the same as beings so different from himself. And what makes Iozen's actions even worse is when met with the present question of who am I, he responds with the selfless answer of, you are the son of Iozen. It would have been one thing if he had told the boy that he was a beast, but the fact that he said son of Iozen explains the boy's actions throughout the entirety of the film. Ichirohiko thought he was nothing but the son of Iozen and lived his entire life by this truth.
And I do what father tells me. Because if I do, I know I'll be like him someday. A great swordsman, one with a long snout and big fangs.
This explains his strong hatred towards Kumatetsu and his apprentice Kyuta, and this explains his anger towards his brother, Jiromaru, and hinting that anyone can possibly challenge Iozen. Because in the broken boy's eyes, they threatened the validity of the man who was trained to believe was his absolute, his maker. His life mission was to show absolute loyalty to the man who took everything away from him. Because without identity, you are truly nothing. Ichirohiko becomes a literal monster in the human world, and Kyuta risks his life to stop him. Then the most powerful and emotional scene takes place, where Kumatetsu gives the life he fought so hard to keep to Kyuta, to save his life in the human world.
I may be a fool and a bum and a slob, but for him I can be strong!
The most noble gesture a master can do for a stubborn apprentice, and it is sad because despite all the growth Kyuta had towards finding his identity, when met with Ichirohiko, he is reminded of the monster that lies within himself. Kyuta allows himself to be engulfed by his inner monster, stating that he and Ichirohiko are unfit for the world of the living. Kumatetsu appears reincarnated as a sword that truly fills the void within Kyuta, and together, Kyuta and Kumatetsu slay the tragedy that is Ichirohiko, the boy that was robbed of his identity. I remember seeing a trailer about this movie a couple years back, probably about 2014. You know, you see all them cold-ass anime movie trailers, but if you're a broke boy, you can never actually see them shits in the movies. So I was like, oh, that's cool, I want to watch that one day. But I was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to watch that shit one day. Let's be honest. But then through the power of the internet and piracy, I learned to kiss anime. I was finally able to watch The Boy and the Beast and many other anime films that I fell in love with through the trailers, but never had the means to actually go watch. Though the first trailer I seen for The Boy and the Beast, I saw that years ago, so I barely remember it. It's probably going to be as nostalgic as hearing The Secret Life of Avery Yeti if you ever remember seeing that commercial. I was scouring YouTube just to figure out if I should even invest my time into watching The Boy and the Beast. I watched the fan-made trailer and it had the song Blue from the album Sire by Jaden Smith featuring Willow Smith in the background. Well, more specifically, the trailer had all 4 songs B, L, U, E, and not gonna hold you, that is a perfect song. That song is hard, and Willow Smith's vocals really added to the vibe of the film. I honestly would have believed that they used those vocals in the fucking dub for The Boy and the Beast. That would have been legendary. I wish they could have did something like that, cause like Willow Smith's vocals are like when you lift up the sheets when it's cold and your legs get that chilling draft from the room. Like her vocals are so crisp, so emotional, so heavy. Like she has some heavy ass vocals, bro. So foreign. Like her voice, I can see an avatar off of the Avatar singing with her voice. Like her voice is it's almost alien. It's crazy. Of course they mixed it in a certain way to make it sound like that, but her voice was perfect for that trailer. And it's also perfect that this specific song was picked because Jaden Smith and Willow Smith are both victims of constant spotlight and criticism. Jaden Smith from The Pursuit of Happiness to The Karate Kid to After Earth. His whole life can be seen on film. Willow Smith from I Am Legend to I Whip My Hair Back and Forth to Red Table Talk. 2 people who poured their hearts out, who both were living with the curse of being a child star. Though this applied to both, but more so for Jaden, his unstable mental state, his behavioral episodes, his controversies, all show that he saw this fame as a blessing and a curse. He had a platform to speak his truth, but his truth was because of the platform that has watched him grow his entire life. This leads to what makes Jaden's situation so horrible. He has everything the world has to offer. How dare he be sad or unhappy? In the eyes of the masses, rich kids have all the rights in the world except the right to be unhappy. And then you can take a look at like Jeanette McCurdy off of, iCarly or some shit. Like the spotlight gave her crippling anxiety and she just wanted to give it all up to be normal. But she had financial obligations to keep on acting. The Boy and the Beast is a cold film. I think it's underrated. I don't really hear people talking about it. I don't want to say it's like a House of the Castle or like a Spirited Away, but it is up there and probably one of the best anime films I ever watched in my life. And I wish it got more attention because The Boy and the Beast is a cold film. This film had me saying 2 main things over and over again for the next couple of weeks, even up until this date. Kumatetsu. Kyuta! Like, you know how they say that shit in the film? All anime like they had me saying that shit all day. Kumatetsu. Kyuta! All day, bro. And I also found it perfect how the void within themselves was really just their lack of identity. And it's perfect that they took 2 kids, even though it's not an official trailer, of course. Jaden Smith and Willow Smith probably went through an identity crisis themselves. Like, they can't relate to kids their age because they're so different. And it's hard for them to relate to any other rich kid because no other kids are like Will Smith's kids. Like, this is Will Smith we're talking about. From Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to Men in Black, Independence Day, The Pursuit of Happiness, which is one of my favorite films of all time, to what else was Will Smith in? See, like, he's such a GOAT that there's more than that. Like, that's goated, right? That's a goated playlist. Oh yeah, Hitch, which is another cold movie. But I'm about to wrap at this point for real. This is a really fun video to make because I got to relive one of my favorite anime films of all time. Even though I have a lot of favorite things of all time, this is definitely a gem, a hidden gem to say the least. If Spirited Away and House of the Castle and Princess Mononoke are the generation of miracles, The Boy and the Beast is an uncrowned king. Fuck with it, please. And I'm pretty sure if you already watched this video, you already fuck with it. Get somebody else to fuck with it. Get this shit up, bruh. The Boy and the Beast is a cold movie, bruh. A movie about an identity crisis, and I feel like sooner or later everybody would go through something like that. Especially if you're from an urban area type shit. You just run into so many different people. But I appreciate y'all niggas watching. Kiss on the left cheek, slap in the right. I'll see y'all when I see y'all, man.